Hello, hello, my amazing creative friends, Oksana here again. Today I wanted to show you a few of my very first repeat pattern designs that I created in 2010, I think, and I wanted to share a few of my suggestions that I would give myself back when I was just starting out repeat pattern design. So, and also while I was looking for these patterns, I actually found two of my first ever repeat pattern designs that actually became popular and started selling and making income for me, which that was kind of fun. And so it's always helpful and useful even to me to make these videos for you guys. So thank you for a great suggestion to make a video like that. But basically, I wanted to share what I would tell myself just starting out, what to focus on, what to understand that this is just a part of a journey. So stay tuned for that. I will show you both the patterns and the insights coming up. So this is it. This is the first pattern ever I created in Adobe Illustrator. It was back in 2010 and my husband was helping me exactly with this pattern because I was really frustrated with pattern creation in Adobe Illustrator. This was before Adobe Illustrator had a pattern tool, which I still don't use, as you guys know, and there was no good way to create patterns in Adobe Illustrator. So I was struggling a lot. So you guys, with the pattern tool and with the systems that me and other fellow textile designers are sharing, you guys are in much better shape, because back then it was tricky. So I did not understand at that time the flow of the repeat. In no way I'm saying that this is a perfect pattern, but it is actually a pattern that interestingly sold over 8 years since I created it, and it was definitely interesting to start understanding that you can arrange little elements, or the same instance even of elements, into this flow on the pattern, and that you can repeat it across in all directions, and you will have a repeating pattern tile. So that was interesting. I was inspired by kimono at this time. I had a little flower that I created particularly for this pattern because my husband told me, okay, I will help you figure out Adobe Illustrator and repeat pattern design, which I'm so grateful that he did, because once he showed me that I can create a repeat pattern in Adobe Illustrator, I was definitely hooked. So 10,000 patterns later, well, I have close to 5,000 patterns, and maybe 5,000 more of different types of borders and templates, and maybe color versions of those patterns. So 10,000 files later, I definitely was enjoying myself creating them. But what I wanted to share is that at this stage, what I didn't understand was that I can vary the elements still. I was thinking that I can repeat the same element over and over again. And also I created this texture-like pattern because in my husband's perspective, he had some experience in web design. He said that the patterns need to be kind of blend in with the background, and they don't need to have very distinct elements, so that they can be used well as a background for something. Even though that is true, that is one of the uses for patterns, but eventually what I figured out is that patterns have different multiple uses, and that you can create different elements, and sometimes patterns have very distinct and bold elements that stand out to make them suitable more as a eye-catching piece and a decor element rather than a background, something that needs to be blended in the background. Alright, so that was the first pattern that I created. I actually was super happy, and I'm still happy with it, and every time I see that it sells somewhere on Spoonflower or somewhere on my other websites that I sell my patterns on, I definitely have a smile on my face, because I am excited about that it's still selling and people buy it. Alright, you guys, so that was this pattern. At this moment, I still didn't have a very fast system how to create them. I definitely improved my system over the last 8 years, and I have symbols on repeat system that I use for creating my patterns, and it made everything so much faster, and it helped me create my repeat pattern super fast. And I went at this point, after practicing a little bit, within a few weeks I went from creating one pattern per week to creating one pattern for 30 minutes, sometimes even 15 minutes if I already have elements lined up. So it was drastic change. So I went back to work, and I will show you just a few more from the same period when I was just starting out. So I came from illustrating children's books to repeat pattern design. So immediately after that, most of my patterns, maybe 80% of my patterns that I was creating, had some kind of element of a children's book illustration in them. So they were very much influenced by my children's book illustrating years. So I was starting to create these kind of patterns, which definitely, to be honest, they were starting to sell. So I was seeing sales very quickly, but definitely they were not really growing as fast as I wanted. So I experimented at this stage. I decided to break away from using only children's elements and children's topic in my patterns, and I started to creating different ones. And what happened is that these two are the patterns from the same time when I was my first patterns, basically maybe first 3 months. I created these ones, and these two were the first ones that actually started selling a lot. So they became popular, and I mean a lot in comparison to all of my other patterns. So I mean, for me at that time they were selling a lot, and looking back, they still do sell 8 years later very often on most of the websites. So interestingly, that these two were my first, let's say, breakthrough patterns. But what was fascinating for me looking back is that I had no idea when I created them. So my advice, if you are at this stage, a starting stage of your creative career, is that sometimes you do not know, well, most of the time you do not know what's going to be a hit and what's not. And sometimes you like something very much and you worked at something for many hours, but eventually people don't really buy it and don't license it, and this is totally normal. So people get frustrated quickly at this stage, but you need to just create as much as you can, try different things, and then eventually you will start seeing what works, and you can do more of it. And in this particular case, my current style is definitely much closer to this one, to the one with the feathers. And it is fascinating to see that it's been many years and I still kind of like this type of style with these little swirls and dots. I still use them to this day. And sometimes I do use the doodle style that I used in this pattern with kids. So definitely, looking back, it was fascinating to see how these patterns became the first ones that became popular. And it's funny that I just was looking at my first patterns for this video, and I understood that wait a minute, these guys were these patterns were the first ones that started selling a lot. And I wanted to sum up a few things for you guys. Advice that I would give myself back then, when I was just starting out 8 years ago. So you can't guess what style or topic is going to work. And that is definitely, I had that feeling, and that first year, that oh yeah, I know what's going to work, this or that, and I thought I had it all figured out, but I didn't. So in what worked eventually is trying different styles and topics, systematically, and uploading all the time new different styles and topics. They don't have to be all super different if you have a really distinct style that you want to work in, but at the same time you might be limiting yourself because you're not testing enough. So trying different ones and seeing what happens was definitely something that helped a lot. And another tip is Adobe Illustrator is always tricky in the beginning. It is sometimes even tricky when they have updates and bugs and these kind of things, even still. So this is software for you guys. But generally I can say that everyone went through this. So if you're at this stage when you're frustrated and this doesn't work and that doesn't save and this doesn't look right, we've all been there. It is definitely tricky to figure out, especially by yourself. So I am so happy that I can share on this channel and in my Pattern It Up course the tricks and tips and systems that work for me. But definitely Adobe Illustrator is tricky, and once you get past these initial weeks of learning and setting everything up and setting up your system and knowing what you to do and how to create your patterns and how to sell your patterns eventually, things become much more easier, and you can much more easy, and you can start enjoying your work much more and working super fast, which definitely helps. And in the first few weeks I was definitely frustrated, but once I figured out my system and my flow and I started using the tools that me and my husband developed for the Adobe Illustrator, things started immediately be much more enjoyable and exciting. All right, and let's see. And number 3, look back at what is working and create more of it. I had this thing when I was starting out that I didn't really look at the patterns that were working. I just looked at, oh, money, I start making money, which is awesome, great. And all of a sudden I just had an idea for this, to draw this and draw that. So I started being very good at experimentation, but I was not very good at analyzing. And it is probably common among creative people that they want to just have their fun creative ideas and they don't really want to look back. Or sometimes we might actually think that our old patterns are not very good, which sometimes it is, that's true, sometimes it's not true. But what I realized over the years, that looking back at what was working, which patterns, which styles, which colors, and creating more of it was growing my business much faster than just plumbing ahead without looking back and without seeing what was working and without analyzing. Alright, you guys, so these are the tips that I would give myself just starting out. So I'm hoping that if you are just starting out or you are growing and transitioning into vector repeat pattern design, you might find this useful as well. Alright, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you want to see more videos like that, like this one. And if you want me to create more like this one, please let me know in the comments and like this video so that I can know that you want me to create some more just like this. Alright, you guys, have a great day and I'll see you next time. Grow, love, and create. Bye!